Mikey spoke at Charlie's memorial yesterday.
My friend was martyred for using his voice to engage in peaceful dialogue. Charlie's assassin thought that he could steal and silence his voice by putting a bullet in his neck. In the words of Soren Kierkegaard, the tyrant dies and his rule is over. The martyr dies and his rule has just begun.
Mikey joins me now. Thank you very much. And thanks for your words yesterday. It was a very moving ceremony. You know, I think on a personal level, and I think about this with regard to Erica Kirk as well, I'm sure all of you have been so focused on this memorial and getting ready for it, and it gives everyone a purpose in the middle of the grief. So I'm wondering how you felt this morning when you woke up and it was over, and you have to think about the next things and moving on without Charlie, Mikey.
Well, thank you, Martha, for having me on, and thank you for continuing to platform Charlie's legacy and his life. What we saw at that event yesterday was a microcosmic glimpse of what heaven is like right now. Millions of people gathering. Our TPUSA data team tracked over 277,000 people at the event, over 100 million people tuning into the stream. And as Erica said in her speech, we didn't see any looting. We didn't see any rioting. We didn't see a start of a revolution in the streets. What we saw is hundreds of thousands of people gathering in a stadium to lay their heartbreak and their pain at the feet of Jesus, to worship for 3 hours. We saw politicians from around the nation gather to honor Charlie, some of them talking about Christ in the Bible for the first time ever in public statements. Saw J.D. Vance take the stage and say that he's never talked about Jesus or the Bible this much. And then he has these past 2 weeks. And so the memorial's over. Our team has pulled this off in 6 days, which seemed unimaginable. And in the words of Charlie, it's time to get back to work. And he famously said, I had fun once, I hated it. We're ready to get to work, and we're gonna work hard to keep his legacy alive.
You know, I want to play this. This is from Van Jones, and they had some back and forth, as Charlie did, with a lot of public figures, and it gets heated at times. And he talked about learning. Van Jones talked about learning after Charlie was assassinated, that Charlie had just reached out to him, and Van Jones's staff shared that with him. Watch this.
But it was the next day when suddenly my team called back and said, Charlie Kirk was trying to reach you the day before he died. I was like, what? So he was trying to reach you. He had sent you a message. And so I saw the message, and it was a message saying, let's talk about this civilly. Let's come on my show. Let's be gentlemen. And he said, let's disagree agreeably.
You know, your thoughts on that? They were arguing or going back and forth about the murder of Irina Zarutska, which happened just days before what happened to Charlie. What do you think when you listen to Van Jones there, Mikey?
Yeah, Charlie was always the man in the arena, and he disagreed with people all the time. He fought with people all the time, but ultimately he was ready for free speech and dialogue with everyone. He'd go into a room and debate 25 people at one time, or he would argue with Van Jones online and then DM him and ask him to come to the studio to have an honest dialogue debate. And that's who Charlie was. And so I think a lot of people saw that with his passing. And so even yesterday in the stadium, there was thousands and thousands of people who didn't necessarily watch any Charlie Kirk videos, but the week before really woke them up. And whether that's them buying a Bible for the first time, going to church for the first time, or caring about America for the first time, it's ultimately an example that Charlie is so much bigger than we realized, and that this Van Jones example is so much bigger than we realized.
I'm curious what you think about that. Don Lemon was not impressed with what he saw yesterday, and he thought that it was odd, I guess is a fair way to put it, but let's listen to his own words. Watch this.
What we saw in that arena was not simply faith-finding public expression. It was religious nationalism on full display. That is the truth. That is my truth. This is my freedom of expression. This is my First Amendment right to be able to tell you the truth.
And no doubt Charlie would defend his right to say what he wants to say about it yesterday. But what about that comment that it was religious nationalism that we were watching yesterday on full display? What's your response to that, Mikey?
Yeah, well, thank you for playing that clip. I don't think Don Lemon's very big anymore. His ratings fell off the roof and he lost his show. So I don't know how many people are listening to his statements anymore. Charlie would totally agree with his ability to execute free speech and say whatever he wants. He would say the same for Jimmy Kimmel, but ultimately he's not funny anymore. Both of them have bad views, bad ratings, and neither of them could fill a stadium with 100,000 people, overflow with 50,000 people, and 100 million people streaming online.
Yeah, you know, I thought it was very striking, and I think it's a good point that you made, that a lot of the people, even in the stadium, hadn't really listened to Charlie Kirk before what happened. And I think, you know, one of the powerful moments to me was when one of the pastors, and forgive me, I forget which one it was, we heard from a number of good pastors yesterday, said, you know, if you're already a follower of Christ, you know, stay seated. But if you are thinking about going to church or you're thinking about opening a Bible, stand up. And those people stood up. Many of them had tears on their faces. It truly was a revival. It was the kind of moment we, you know, remember in the films about Billy Graham. How does that continue? You know, how does it continue? And Turning Point Faith, excuse me, I think is probably the arm that wants to see that continue and help that continue.
Yeah, that happened to be my dad that made that statement, Rob McCoy.
That's right.
But it was an altar call, and tons of people in the stadium stood up. And at TPUSA Faith, we have 2,500 plus church affiliates. Thousands of them streamed yesterday's memorial service. One church in Albuquerque had 5,000 people in attendance. And we're going to continue that work. We're going to continue bringing people to Christ. And even more than that, seeing what Erica did on stage by forgiving on stage set an example to so many people. And so Erica, following her was Trump, and you have two of these people here. So Erica is living out Romans 12, which is her coming on. Christ says, do not avenge yourselves, for vengeance is mine, says the Lord. Romans 13, appoint people, ministers of justice, to enact wrath on those who do wrong. And so you have Erica, the saint who's forgiving, and you have Trump, who is enacting justice.
Mikey, thank you very much. Mikey McCoy, good to have you here today. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.